All right, so I've been mulling it over for a few hours after this affix update post, trying to think about what I liked about this and what I didn't like about this just as a whole. Obviously, I think that everybody's going to have a differing opinion. As you know, you've seen there's a lot of people who've been posting different community changes as to like what they would do differently. I kind of want to talk about some of the things that I would do actually changing this. I don't think that it's a simple situation of like they should just completely rethink how they're doing this. I think that there's some actionable things that Blizzard might be able to do. Blizzard is actually pretty reasonable with some of the changes that they make to M+. Like you saw it with Explosive whenever they were adding Incorporeal and Afflicted and Entangling. They also reworked Explosive. People hated that. Blizzard was like, all right, you know what, never mind, you're right. And then they deleted Explosive. So like Blizzard tends to actually listen and kind of care about some of the stuff whenever it takes to affixes. But I think that this is definitely the direction that we're going to be going, at least in the near future. I think that this is something that I'm glad to see an affix shakeup. I think that continuing on with status quo was probably not great. So seeing at least some changes is positive. And so let's talk about some pretty actionable stuff that we can see. Also, if you want, on Thursday, M+ testing is starting. I'm going to be streaming whenever M+ testing is supposed to start, which is, noon Central Time, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1900 CEST type beat. So come check out my stream. Going to be playing with Growl and some other friends, and we're going to be testing the new affixes. They're also changing how the testing on the affixes work. Basically, affix will rotate daily on beta realms to expedite their testing. This means that no longer are you going to have affixless keys. So we're going to be testing what we have. And so we're going to be able to see the new affixes. With all that out of the way, let's talk about what I would do differently with the affixes. So I think that it's pretty easy to say that I think that they're keeping the wrong affixes. And I think that this is actually something that they could be looking to change. I think that this is the fastest thing. I think that a lot of people very correctly clocked that Raging, Bolstering, and Sanguine, keeping all of those around just feels mad miserable. Bursting is one that's, I would say, different. High-end players' opinions on bursting is a lot different than, the average player's opinion on bursting, just due to the fact that at some point your healer grows hands and then they're able to heal bursting. Also, there's this weird dynamic where whenever mobs have lower HP, it's a lot easier to roll bursting, and so you roll your 8 into your 9 into your 10 into your 11 into your 12, which you would never have that happen in a high key. So there's like a lot of different stuff, and people pop defensives in like high level dungeons versus bursting, whereas in an average pug you're not popping a defensive versus bursting. Anyways, so I think the average experience is a little different on this affix, but in general I think that Raging, Bolstering, and Sanguine, the average experience is not different. These affixes just suck. And so I think by changing what affixes they're selecting, we could actually make for something that's a little bit better. I would probably be looking to keep, bursting. I think is probably going to end up staying just by virtue of there not being a bunch of other good candidates. But then I would end up keeping Volcanic and Entangling. I thought these were fairly low impact affixes just as a whole. I thought that they were about in line with what I would like to see out of affixes just in general, and I think that would. Honestly, Raging and Bolstering and Sanguine are just not very fun. And so then that kind of leads me to the question, like, what would I even have for the fourth affix of this row, just to try to keep in theme with what's going on? I would probably end up keeping Storming. I do understand that melee players hate Storming. I do understand that there's situations where Storming is particularly obnoxious. I'm not saying that Storming is perfect. I'm not saying that melee won't get the short end of the stick if we keep Storming, but like it's better than keeping Spiteful. Those kind of affixes. So it's like, I think that Storming is maybe the lowest impact affix of this. So I would first and foremost start by getting rid of these 4 affixes. Like, these are not the correct ones. I think that going with a different combination of 4 affixes is definitely gonna be better. Anything to get me away from Bolstering and Raging. Bolstering and Raging are particularly cringe affixes, not very fun to play. Next up, I think that, okay, so there's a couple things to talk about. First and foremost, I don't like how Augmentation Evoker, Destro Warlock, and Havoc Demon Hunter, with the way that these affixes are designed right now, get benefits basically from every single week. Augmentation Evoker is going to be like, oh, who are my new friends? Whereas Havoc Demon Hunter and Destro Warlock, they do chaos damage. A large portion of their damage is chaos damage, which is all spell skill types, right? And so any of these magic damage increases that are present, the Destro Warlock and the Havoc Demon Hunter are basically going to get full value out of, or most value. Most of their damage is like Rain of Fire for Destro Warlock. Very little of their damage is actually fire damage kind of type beat. Whereas like Rain of Fire and Chaos Bolt are both chaos damage, and then it's like I don't know. But then like Havoc Demon Hunter, not all of their damage is chaos damage. Some of their damage is melee swings, and Chaos Strike I believe is just flat physical. So, or not Chaos Strike, like Demon's Bite is just like flat physical. So then there's some stuff like that's on their damage profile that is physical. But yeah, in general I think that those things are pretty problematic. How AUG and both Havoc and Destro Warlock interact with this, not a fan. Now, with that being said, I think that they should actually go up more generic with how these work, where it should just be 1 week magic damage is increased, 1 week physical damage is increased. And so I kind of wrote it out. I kind of wrote it out on Notepad. So first off, I would delete Tyrannical and Fortified. I think that Tyrannical and Fortified are, you could actually pretty reasonably get rid of these with how you're actually changing these. And then you alternate between Reckless and Attuned every single week, where Reckless is non-boss enemies without mana ignore 20% armor with their attacks. So similar to what the effect is right now, where it's they ignore armor with 20% of their attacks, but they end up taking 30% increased damage from bleed effects, and they take 10% increased physical damage. This means that we're going to have a melee week, like where melee DPS are just inherently a little bit stronger, where they're doing 10% more damage, and then we're going to have a magic damage week, where Attuned is non-boss enemies with mana inflict 20% increased magic damage, but take 10% increased magic damage. And so then that really creates this dichotomy of like, oh, okay, so the caster mobs on caster week take bonus damage from wizards, and then for Reckless, it's the non-caster mobs on melee week take bonus damage from the melee DPS, and they take increased physical damage, or like the hunters, I guess, are physical, but like it doesn't really matter. And so then I would alternate between Tyrannical and Fortified with this. Or not alternate between Tyrannical and Fortified, alternate between Reckless and Attuned with this, as opposed to having Tyrannical, Fortified, and then these, and then Raging, Bolstering, Bursting Sanguine on top of that. So that's what I would actually do. I think that would actually probably create for the most interesting decisions. I think that the easiest way to make this decision a lot more palatable for players is maybe rethinking which 4 affixes you're picking, because that's not very fun. And so then it's going to rely on the situation where every single push week is going to be bursting, and then you're going to be super reliant on bursting, and that's like really not very fun. Anyhow, I'm interested in hearing your thoughts down in the comment section. I think that everybody's opinion is valid. Again, on Thursday, I'm going to be streaming live whenever the servers come up and N+ testing starts. So if you're looking for some content in regards to what it's like, what the affixes actually look like, how it feels to play, make sure to come check that out, and we will see you guys there. Goodbye.